A pleasant day to all. Thank you for considering this video. I will discuss here the things to consider during your program development. For our topic outline, we have the program development lifecycle, code blocks software, the structure of a basic C program. Program development may comprise of one or more people working as a team. System analysts and computer programmers are the most common jobs working in the program development. The system analyst studies the problem and designs techniques on how to solve the problem, while the computer programmer uses a programming language in order to create the automated solution of the problem. So let us start with program development life cycle. Like any other life cycle, you have to go through different stages or phases. You cannot skip from one phase going to the other. You have to do it step by step. For program development life cycle, we follow the problem definition, problem analysis, algorithm design and representation, and coding and debugging. To start with your program development, you have to define your problem first. If you are to create a program for a client, for example, this is where you will interview your client. In this phase, it is the system analyst who works. He or she will try to understand what are the data to be included in the program and how these data will be processed and what are the information or the reports or the result of the process would be. Let's take a look at a simple example. Create a program that displays the sum of three numbers. Based on the problem, we have to have three numbers. So this will be our input. What would be the process? We have a clue here that says sum, meaning we are going to add the three numbers. The use of the arithmetic operator, the addition. And it shows that the output is the sum. The problem defined is clear because it states the input, the three numbers, the process, addition, and the output to display the sum. The next is to analyze the problem. We would know the input, process, and output. Considering the example in our previous phase, our input would be N1, N2, N3. We have sum is equal to N1 plus N2 plus N3. That would be our process. And output is the sum. Take a look at the process. If you have the equal sign, on the left side of that equal sign would be your output. But how could you come up with a result? If you would notice, on the right side of the equal sign are the inputs or the given. This means the inputs are relevant in order to come up with the output. Note that the input would come from the user. Next phase is the algorithm design and representation. In this phase, you could either choose one from the following. We have algorithm, pseudocode, or flowchart. Let us discuss them one by one. An algorithm is a clear specification of the steps needed to solve a problem. This is expressed in human language. An example would be, based on our problem defined earlier, we have to go through these steps one by one until such time that we come up with the output. On the other hand, pseudocode is also similar to an algorithm, though the difference is that you can now use terms or symbols that we use in programming languages. As you could see, we have here open and close curly braces. We make use of the variable declaration. We have int as our data type. We make use of the semicolon. The steps are similar with algorithm. It's just that we do not use purely human language in pseudocode. For the flowchart, this is more appropriate for those who are documenting their program development. It will show you the flow where the data would come from the very beginning up to the end. Flowchart is a graphical representation of your solution to the problem defined. It uses symbols and indicates the flow of your data from the beginning up to the end. These are the symbols that are used in a flowchart. The terminal symbol indicates the beginning and ending of your flowchart. You only have one begin and one end for your flowchart. Another is the preparation symbol that is used to initialize values to your variables. Another is the data symbol. This is used for accepting data input or for displaying the output. We should indicate whether the data symbol is used for input and if it is used for output. Processing symbol is used for our arithmetic processes. And we also have the decision symbol. This is used for conditional statements. This is when the operation requires more than one answer. The arrow that will come inside the decision symbol is 1, but there would be 2 arrows going out of this symbol, either true or false. We also have the on-page and off-page connector. A flowchart will show the flow of your data in a linear pattern. If in case the flowchart is not yet finished and you have to continue within the same page, you could use the on-page connector and just continue the flowchart in another column. But if you would continue your flowchart in the next page, you use the off-page connector just as to continue the flow of your data. This is a flowchart of the problem defined earlier. So we start with begin, then we initialize the sum with the value of 0. We accept inputs N1, N2, and N3. You have to separate each data inputs to different symbols. Since we want to continue the flow of the data in another column within the page, we use the on-page connector. We use a label and typically use the uppercase of the alphabet. We start with letter A. Then continue, we have the input N3. Then once the input data are already given, we can now do the process of adding these 3 data inputs and assign it to variable sum. And then finally, output the value of sum. And that ends the flow chart for the problem defined earlier. Next is the last phase, which is the coding and debugging. Coding is the writing of your computer program based on the algorithm design and representation using the chosen programming language. Most of the time, after the program is created, there will still be errors or bugs that needs fixing. This is the process of debugging the program. This is an example of a source code using the C programming language, which was written in an editor that also serves as the compiler, which is the code blocks application. The system analyst is in charge of the first 3 phases, but the computer programmer is in charge of the last phase, which is the coding and debugging. Take note that other software development lifecycle available were formed based from these basic phases. There are times that they also consider the maintenance of the program and other relevant processes that needs to be done. That ends the topic program development lifecycle.